a very trying period for me at Motown, even.
It was with
that time
everyone.
I was struggling for some sort of independence and some sort of recognition as a producer. And evil with Motown at the time, and we weren't getting on at all.
At the Grammys, so many years now, hoping I'd win an award, and Lou Rawls has won them all from me.
Why did Marvin Gaye have so much tension with other music legends? Was it about competition, jealousy, or something deeper? From Berry Gordy refusing to promote Marvin's music due to his feelings of being too political.
And then I was really having quite a political upheaval with Motown at the time, and we weren't getting on at all.
To Teddy Pendergrass, who had an affair with Marvin's wife Janice while still married to him.
I was depressed because I was very much in love with my wife at the time, and I couldn't bear the thought of the rejection.
And let's not forget how Marvin Gaye reportedly beefed Lou Rawls about winning certain Grammy honors.
I've sat at the Grammys so many years now, hoping I'd win an award, and Lou Rawls has won them all from me. If I was going to tackle him, he came down off the stage and grab it and cause a big stink at the Grammys.
But hey, there are more on the list. Marvin definitely had his share of conflicts. Now let's delve in and find out what really went on, starting with Berry Gordy.
A very trying period for me at Motown, even.
It was with
that time
everyone.
I was struggling for some sort of independence and some sort of recognition.
Gordy was the man who created Motown Records. He helped turn many singers into stars, including Marvin Gaye. But things weren't always smooth between the two. Their relationship was full of ups and downs, especially when Marvin wanted to take control of his music. Marvin Gaye was one of Motown's biggest stars. He had a smooth voice and could sing about love, heartbreak, and life. Berry Gordy liked Marvin's songs about romance because they sold well and made people feel good. But Marvin wanted to do more than just sing love songs. He wanted to talk about serious things happening in the world. In the 1970s, Marvin started working on an album called What's Going On. It wasn't about love or dancing. It was about war, poverty, and injustice. Marvin felt these were important topics that people needed to hear. When he showed his idea to Berry Gordy, Berry didn't like it. He thought the album wouldn't sell because it was too serious. Berry wanted Marvin to stick to happy songs. Marvin didn't listen. He believed in his music and fought to release the album. In 1971, What's Going On finally came out, and it became a huge hit. People loved the songs, and the album became one of the most famous in music history. Berry Gordy was surprised by how much people loved it, but he still didn't completely agree with Marvin's decision. Even though they didn't always see eye to eye, Berry Gordy and Marvin Gaye respected each other. Berry knew Marvin was talented, and Marvin knew Berry had helped him become famous.
You'll never find it'll take the end of all time.
Then next on the list is Lou Rawls. Did you know that Rawls and Gaye had a bit of tension over Grammy Awards? Yes, it's true. Even though both were incredibly talented, Marvin Gaye reportedly felt upset about Lou Rawls winning certain Grammy honors. Let's dive into this story. Lou Rawls was a famous singer known for his smooth voice and incredible range. He won many awards during his career, including Grammys in the R&B category. But these wins didn't sit well with Marvin. He believed that some of the Grammy Awards Rawls received weren't entirely fair.
And the winner are a tie. Play that funky music, Wild Cherry, and you'll never find another love, Lou Rawls.
He thought he deserved more recognition for his own music, which was groundbreaking and deeply emotional. One of the key issues was the Grammy categories. The awards Lou Rawls won were in the R&B section, which Marvin Gaye didn't think fully represented the kind of impact his music had. To Gaye, his songs were more than just R&B. They were soul-stirring and unique. But in those days, being labeled as just R&B felt limiting to many artists, including Marvin. Despite this resentment, Gaye didn't let it hold him back. He kept working on his music and eventually got the recognition he craved. When he finally won Grammys for Best Male Vocal and Best Instrumental Performance, he was thrilled. These awards were still in the R&B category, but that didn't matter anymore. What mattered most was that Marvin finally felt accepted by his peers. Marvin's Grammy speeches were heartfelt and full of gratitude. He talked about how much it meant to him to be recognized for his work. It wasn't just about the trophies, it was about feeling seen and appreciated in the music world.
And I'll do the same thing to you.
So there was some serious tension between Marvin and Teddy Pendergrass, and it all comes down to their careers, egos. Here's the deal. Marvin was starting to lose his shine in the late 70s. He had a lot going on with personal problems and a lot of mental health issues that weren't really understood at the time. Marvin was also dealing with a lot of chaos in his life, including his struggles with drugs and his difficult relationship with his label.
He was on drugs?
He fell out with me because I wouldn't loan him some money to buy some drugs.
Oh, that's what it was over?
Yeah.
Okay. What was Marvin on? Was it cocaine or something else? Okay.
Meanwhile, Teddy Pendergrass was making waves as the new star. He left his group, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, in 1977, and his solo career took off. People started calling him the new Marvin Gaye, which was tough for Marvin to hear. Of course, there are always comparisons in the music industry, but it's hard when someone comes along and starts taking your spotlight. Now, Marvin's album, Hear My Dear, didn't do as well as he had hoped. Marvin himself even said the album flopped, and it seemed like he was blaming it on Berry Gordy for not promoting it enough. Marvin's album was a deeply personal one, all about his feelings and his struggles with his ex-wife, Anna Gordy.
I have to say, this album is dedicated to you.
On the other hand, Teddy Pendergrass was enjoying success, and that made things even more tense between him and Marvin. Marvin wasn't happy about it and even wrote a song called Ego Tripping, where he poked fun at Teddy. This song was meant to make fun of Teddy's arrogance, but it also kind of reflected Marvin's own behavior. Marvin wasn't shy about expressing his emotions, and he had a lot of anger about how his career was going. But what was really going on behind the scenes? Let's dive into it and see what happened. It all started when Janice, Marvin's partner, talked about a song called Ego Trippin' Out.
Ego tripping out.
She said it didn't get much airplay, even though it should have. Marvin was hurt by it, but instead of letting it go, it made him angry. He decided to make an entire album about it, a record that would go after Teddy P. He even planned to call the album The Love Man. But Janice wasn't sure that was a good idea. She thought maybe Marvin should focus on other things, like his music and family, instead of all this drama. Marvin, though, was determined. He told Janice that this album would knock Teddy P right off his pedestal. But things didn't go as planned. While he was working on the album, Marvin got deeper into his depression. This only made things worse at home. He started spending less time with her and their kids. Janice said it felt like a gamble every day, never knowing which version of Marvin she was going to get. Sometimes he was nice, but other times he was angry and unpredictable. This kind of emotional roller coaster can be abusive. She couldn't take it anymore. She knew something had to change. One of the most hurtful things Marvin did was when he planned a family vacation to Hawaii. He left Janice and the kids behind and flew ahead on his own. Later, he called her and begged her to bring the kids to join him. For the next few years, Marvin would do the same thing. He'd plan vacations for the whole family, but he'd go ahead alone and leave Janice and the kids behind, only to call them later and ask them to come to him. Things weren't better at home. Marvin and Janice fought terribly, and things got very dangerous. One time, when they were driving with their children in the car, Marvin swerved the car and threatened to drive it off the road. This kind of behavior went on, and Janice couldn't take it anymore. She felt she needed to do something different, so she had an affair with Frankie Beverly, a singer she was drawn to. But this wasn't the only affair. She also slept with Marvin's biggest music rival, Teddy Pendergrass. Teddy was becoming a huge star, and people were starting to see him as the new sex symbol in soul music. Janice was careless about her affair with Teddy, even going on public dates with him. One day, Marvin saw them together at a restaurant. He couldn't handle it and began to stalk them. This pushed him to the edge. His jealousy grew so strong that he became violent. One day, while high on drugs, Marvin became so angry that he put a kitchen knife to Janice's throat. Janice was terrified, thinking he might kill her. But Marvin's rage eventually calmed down, and he didn't hurt her or himself. This was the last straw for Janice. She left Marvin and took their children with her. Even though she had cheated on Marvin, she didn't see herself as the victim. She believed her actions were a way to get back at him for everything he did to her. She went straight to her mother's house, seeking safety and comfort. Marvin, on the other hand, was angry. He would say cruel things to her, calling her names and even threatening to hurt her. Jan didn't back down, though. She fired back, telling him that he couldn't talk to her like that, and if he tried to do anything, she would stand up for herself. Marvin would apologize, but then the cycle would start again. Marvin Gaye, in his memoir, told Teddy to watch his back whenever he performed in Louisiana. Eventually, things between Teddy and Janice cooled off. Both him and Teddy continued to experience success in the music world. Let's talk about Rick James and Marvin's feud. Did you know he tried to get close to Marvin Gaye's wife, Janice? Oh, this story is something else. It all started at the 1983 Grammys. Marvin Gaye had just won an award for his song, Sexual Healing. The award was presented by none other than Rick James. Rick, being Rick, was on top of the world. He said he was happy with his life, except when it came to love.
This year's Grammy Award goes to the only thing that I like, Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye.
Now hold on, Rick. Aren't you married to Kelly? Don't you have a wife? But I digress. Rick James admitted he was interested in Janice, Gaye's wife. He called her beautiful, smart, and fun. He also said she liked to party, just like him. A lot of people were wondering why he was chasing Marvin's wife. I mean, being Rick, he always bragged about how he can get any woman of his choice. So why are you chasing Marvin's wife? At the time Marvin and Janice were living apart, Rick saw this as his chance. He invited Janice to one of his concerts at the LA Coliseum. But Janice didn't go alone. She brought some friends. That's a classic move. Rick was disappointed. He probably thought this was his moment to impress her. But Janice wasn't making it easy for him. Still, Rick didn't give up. He saw Gaye losing his spotlight in music, and he thought, why not take his wife too? Marvin hadn't had a big hit in a while, and Rick felt like he was the new king in town. Rick James was bold, no doubt about it. But his actions? Messy. He was out here stirring the pot, chasing after another man's wife while still married himself. Classic Rick James behavior. Unpredictable, and always looking for trouble. What do you think? Was Rick just being Rick, or did he cross the line? Rick noticed Marvin wasn't treating Jan the way she deserved. Rick, being the bold man he was, decided to step in. He famously said, "My explicit was right there on the table waiting to treat her real good." And so the affair began. At first, Rick and Jan seemed happy together. Rick even invited Jan to Buffalo, his hometown, to meet his mother. His mom loved Jan and welcomed her warmly. But drama was just around the corner. While Rick and Jan were enjoying their time in Buffalo, the phone rang. It was Marvin Gaye. Marvin wanted to speak to his wife. When Jan got on the phone, Marvin demanded she come back home. Feeling the pressure, Jan told Rick she thought it was best to leave. But here's where things got even messier. Marvin, hurt and angry, went on the radio to air his feelings. He told everyone listening that Rick James was with his wife. Can you imagine hearing that on the radio? It was like pouring gasoline on an already burning fire. Jan tried to work things out with Marvin after she left Rick, but their relationship never recovered. Marvin eventually stopped supporting her financially, leaving her in a tough spot. When Jan tried to reconnect with Rick, he had already moved on emotionally. He admitted he only pursued her because she was Marvin's wife. Once that thrill was gone, he lost interest. Rick even turned Jan into a drug-earning girl, meaning she started helping him with his wild lifestyle, including drugs. Now let's talk about Gaye's distant relationship with James Brown. Marvin Gaye, who later became Tammy's duet partner and close friend, kept his distance from Brown after learning about the abuse towards his partner, Terrell. Tammy Terrell was an incredible talent. By the age of 15, she had already recorded singles and signed contracts. But things took a dark turn when she signed a contract at 17 to work for James Brown. Tammy was hired as one of James Brown's backup singers for his concert tours. However, this job came with something terrible. She was also forced into a sexual relationship with him. Tammy's mother was worried about her daughter going on the road at such a young age. James Brown's assistant, Gertie, promised to keep Tammy safe. But it seems Gertie either failed to protect her or was helping James Brown get closer to Tammy. At first, James showered Tammy with gifts, money, and fancy hotel rooms. But things got worse. Tammy's family discovered that she was being abused. Once, when Tammy's mother and sister visited her in New York, they found James Brown sleeping in her hotel bed. Her mother was worried but believed Gertie's reassurance that everything was fine. Unfortunately, things were far from fine. James Brown was not only sexually exploiting Tammy, but he was also physically abusing her. He would beat her, leaving visible injuries. One of the worst beatings happened on tour. Afterward, Tammy reached out to singer Gene Chandler, also known as the Duke of Earl, for help. Chandler called her parents, who quickly brought her home. Tammy's sister, Ludi, wrote about how broken and worn out Tammy looked when she returned. They even found a blood-stained dress among her belongings, evidence of the horrifying abuse she endured. Tammy wanted to leave James Brown, but was scared of breaking her contract. Eventually, she found the courage to leave, but the damage had already been done. Tammy spent the rest of her life hiding bruises and black eyes. Marvin Gaye was a close friend of Tammy's. They shared a strong bond through their music, performing famous duets like Ain't No Mountain High Enough. When Tammy opened up to Marvin about James Brown's abuse, he was shocked and deeply upset. Marvin decided to keep his distance from James Brown, even though he remained polite in public. Marvin knew that staying away was the best way to avoid potential trouble. James Brown's abusive behavior wasn't a secret in the music world. Bobby Bennett, a member of James's group, the famous Flames, confirmed that Brown's abuse of Tammy was severe. He also shared that James had abused other women, even kicking a pregnant girlfriend down the stairs. Brown's violent tendencies weren't just directed at women. He once aimed a gun at Bobby during an argument. Aside all the feuds, Marvin had his own personal struggles.
He was on drugs?
He fell out with me because I wouldn't loan him some money to buy some drugs.
Oh, that's what it was over?
Yeah.
Okay. What was Marvin on? Was it cocaine or something else? Okay.
Marvin's songs helped create the famous Motown sound, and people started calling him the Prince of Soul and the Prince of Motown.
Get up, get up, get up, let's make love tonight.
His music helped Motown become very successful. He showed how black music grew from simple rhythm and blues to deep soul and songs about important personal and social issues. Gaye was also one of the first artists to step away from the usual way Motown made songs. This gave other artists, like Stevie Wonder, the chance to make music their own way too. Marvin's songs also helped shape the future of R&B music, especially styles like Quiet Storm and neo-soul. Many famous artists, like Barry White, have said they were inspired by Gaye's music. Even in movies, his style was a big influence. In the movie Dreamgirls, Eddie Murphy copied Marvin's 1970s fashion, but his life was full of struggles. One big problem was his drug use. In the 1960s, he started experimenting with drugs like cocaine. By the 1970s, his addiction had grown worse. People close to Marvin said he spent his days switching between reading the Bible and using cocaine. This showed the inner fight he was going through. Over time, his drug use expanded to include other substances like PCP, which affects the mind in dangerous ways. Drugs took a toll on Marvin's mental health. In 1983, he even tried to take his own life twice. On top of his drug problems, Marvin faced serious money troubles. He owed the government over $1 million in taxes and had to pay hundreds of thousands in alimony. The stress of it all became too much, so he left the US and moved to London. Marvin thought moving would help, but instead he partied even harder and kept using drugs. Things didn't get better, so he moved again, this time to Belgium. In Belgium, Marvin met a businessman named Freddie Coussert. Freddie helped Marvin focus on his music again. While there, Marvin created one of his biggest hits, Sexual Healing, in 1983. The song brought him back to fame, but Marvin's problems didn't end. His debts were still huge and his personal life stayed messy. Despite his talent and success, drugs and financial struggles played a big part in his downfall.
Noticing the drug use and kind of his decline and so forth around that time?
I was with Marvin damn near every day, man. Yeah, was I noticing it? Yeah. No, yeah, I was definitely noticing it.
Marvin had a tough childhood. His father, Marvin Gaye Sr., was a strict Pentecostal preacher who ruled their home with tough rules and harsh punishments. He wasn't just strict, though. He also had a lot of personal problems. Marvin's sister, Zayola, shared that their father secretly wore women's clothes and struggled with drinking. When Marvin's father wasn't drinking, he could be kind, but when he drank, he became cold and angry.
He was a very peculiar habits, such as dressing up in women's clothes and wearing his wife's, nylons and underwear and things like that.
This made life hard for Marvin and his family. Although some family members didn't think their father was a bad person, Marvin's childhood pain was something he couldn't forget. As Marvin got older, he moved back home to find things were still difficult. Marvin Sr. had been away on a business trip, but when he came back to Los Angeles, things didn't improve. The relationship between father and son continued to get worse, with many arguments. Eventually, Marvin's two sisters moved out of the house because of all the fighting. Marvin's sister John once said in an interview that their father often threatened to hurt Marvin if he ever touched him. Marvin's pain from his father went deep. In an interview in 1985, Jean explained that Marvin had wanted to die. Marvin himself once gave his father a gun for protection, but things only got worse. On April 1st, there was a big argument between Marvin Sr. and his mother, Alberta. Marvin tried to stop the fight, but his father became more aggressive. When Marvin Sr. started yelling at Alberta, Marvin pushed his father and tried to defend his mother. Alberta later shared that Marvin kicked his father hard, and things got out of control. A few minutes later, Marvin Sr. did what he had threatened for years. He grabbed the gun Marvin had given him and shot his son twice in the chest. Marvin's brother Frankie and his wife heard the gunshots. Frankie rushed to help Marvin, and he later shared what Marvin's final words were. Marvin said, "I got what I wanted. I couldn't do it myself, so I had him do it." These words made some family members believe that Marvin had wanted to die all along and had pushed his father to end his life.
She answered the phone. She said, hello. And I said, hello. And she said, oh, baby, it's you. So she recognized my voice. She said, yeah, I know why you called me, and it's true. She said, his father shot him.
Some family members thought Marvin wanted to end the pain of his life and help his mother by getting rid of his father. Jean said that Marvin did it to punish his father, making sure his dad would live with the guilt for the rest of his life.